People always said there was something off about her. Alice never argued. She knew when the world sleeps by the rules, the one who dreams awake will always seem strange. She could sense changes 3 days before they happened. Hear a dog cry without making a sound. Feel the heartbeat of a stranger moments before it stopped. And all of it stayed secret. Until the night the rain gave her a key. Alice lived in a small town where days mirrored each other like gray uniformed twins. She worked in a dusty little bookshop, where the scent of old pages hung in the air like incense. Sometimes she spoke to the books aloud, because some of them whispered back. That evening, the storm had a mind of its own. The wind howled like a warning. She shut the shutters, turned off the lights, and was about to leave when she heard a single thud from the top shelf. One of the books had fallen. It landed open, face down, and between the pages lay a key, thin, metallic, old, but wet, as if pulled from a puddle. The windows were shut. The rain hadn't touched anything else. Alice wasn't surprised. Fear and wonder had long ago been replaced in her with something quieter. A sense that life was a tapestry, and she was part of its invisible thread. The key trembled in her palm. It was cold but pulsing, almost alive. There were tiny letters etched into the metal. Turn at 3:03. She couldn't sleep that night. The key lay beneath her pillow, whispering in silence. Alice set her alarm for 3:02, and somehow drifted off for exactly 1 minute. When it rang, she didn't flinch. She rose, pulled on her coat, and stepped outside barefoot. The rain had stopped, but the earth was soaked, and the air crackled with static and mystery. She didn't know where she was going. She just followed the pull. The key pulsed with every step she took. At 3:03, she stood in front of an old lamppost on the edge of town. Beside it, a stone she'd never noticed before. Beneath the stone, a tiny door. The key slipped into the lock like it belonged there. Click. There were no stairs, no room, just a void. And it called to her. Alice stepped forward. She didn't fall, she didn't float, she simply transformed. Colors lost their names. Time turned syrup thick. Thoughts vanished, replaced by sensations. The sound of a tree growing backwards. The taste of a memory that never happened. The feeling of knowing the names of every cloud in the sky. When she woke, she stood at the edge of a river that didn't exist on any map. Glowing trees surrounded her. The sky shimmered like melted gold, and before her stood a woman with eyes like her own. You've arrived. The key has chosen you. Who are you, the one who's waited for you to awaken? You are the last of the gatekeepers. And now you must choose, return or remain. Alice didn't know what to say, but something unlocked inside her. Images burst forth, a staircase made of water, a mirror that didn't reflect, a child calling her mother. Though she'd never had a child, she understood. This meeting was fated, but the choice was entirely her own. You are not a coincidence, Alice. You are a returned one. The woman with eyes like her own spoke softly, but something inside Alice rang with the weight of those words, like an ancient bell long forgotten, returned, from where you've been here before, more than once. You are one of those who vowed to guard the gates, but you chose to forget. And now, you're beginning to remember. They walked through a forest with no sound and no shadows. The leaves glowed but did not rustle. The ground was warm, like skin. The air filled with scents Alice didn't recognize, yet missed, as if from before she was born. Every soul is given one chance to forget, the woman said, but not all remember in time. What happens if I don't remember? The world will seal itself. You will stay, but without your code, without your knowing, just a shell. But if you do remember, you will restore more than just yourself. They reached a lake, black and still like glass. Alice looked down and saw not her reflection, but another version of herself. Older, stronger, her eyes were gold. She held a child in her arms and looked back at Alice with a knowing gaze. The woman spoke, "This is you if you choose the guardian's path. But this is not a prophecy. It is only a possibility. You must enter the water if you want to remember what was and what could be." Alice stepped forward. The water was warm, like blood. She didn't sink. She remembered through her skin. Every movement was a life, and as the water closed over her head, she saw everything. She was a girl in another time, another world, copper hair, wrists and chains, but fire in her chest. She stood before gates of light, whispering through tears. I agree to forget. Send me again. Let me fall into silence if it means saving them. They gave her the key, the very same key. Rosette another memory, a young man with desert-colored skin who lost his memories for opening the gates too soon. He fell, but smiled as he did. Rosette a woman giving birth, and with that act, gifting her child the memory of forgotten realms. Alice surfaced from the water, heart full of silence that burned with truth. The woman waited on the shore. I was all of them, Alice whispered. You are not a name, not a body. You are the essence beneath. And now listen closely. The passage is open, but someone went through it who was never meant to. And only you can find them and stop them. If you don't, the world will begin to unravel, not in the future, but in the past. How do I find them? The woman handed her a single glowing leaf. On it, just one word, girl. You will meet her. But she is not what she seems. She is a spark, but also fire. You'll know her when she says the words. I remember your dreams when that happens. Do not fear. Do not judge. Choose. Alice found herself once again at the edge of where she'd begun. In her hand, the key. In her palm, the warmth of the leaf's print. And in her chest, a quiet readiness. She opened her eyes. She was back in her room. The clock read 3:03. Rain tapped gently against the glass. On the floor, the same book where she'd first found the key. But now the pages were blank, all of them, except for the last one. A handwritten note. You entered, but the exit is a choice too. Remember, what you seek is seeking you. The next evening, Alice stepped outside at exactly 3:03. It had become her inner clock. She didn't need an alarm anymore. Something in the air seemed to shift at that hour, as if the world briefly unlocked itself for anyone brave enough to look inside. She walked through damp streets, quiet and silver under the streetlights. Then she saw the girl, but her shadow fell in 4 directions at once. Alice approached slowly. Are you alone? The girl looked up. I remember your dreams. Alice sat beside her. Her legs trembled slightly, but her voice stayed steady. Do you know who I am? You're a guardian. But still asleep. I'm a rupture. A rupture of what? Of every passage. I'm the mistake that couldn't be erased. And I don't know who I'll become if you choose not to keep me. She spoke like an adult, too precisely, too knowingly, and in her eyes there was a kind of eternal march. Cold, damp, and always waiting for spring. You went through the passage, Alice asked. The girl nodded, but it didn't want me. It slammed shut, and I was trapped in between. Until you opened it. That's how I came back. What do you want? Not to die again. Not to vanish into nothing. Suddenly, the air trembled. Time felt heavy, like it did right before a thunderstorm. From around the corner, a tall man appeared. He wore dark clothes, a mask with no features, and a glowing symbol on his chest. You shouldn't speak to her, Alice. She's a breach. A break in the code. If she remains, reality will begin to fracture. She's a child. She's a passage in form. She wasn't born. She's a consequence, a result of a choice that was never made. Every breath she takes multiplies the error. Alice stood up. I won't give her up. Then you choose her. And she will become what you allow her to become. Light or fire that burns the world. Are you ready to carry that? The girl said nothing, just watched. Her eyes began to glow. Softly, like the street lamp that now finally lit above her. Then she spoke. If you leave me, I'll disappear without a trace. But if you keep me, I'll become a beginning, not saved. Just possible. Alice closed her eyes. Inside her, all the lives she had ever lived rose to meet her. Chains and oaths, voices of the unborn, fractures between worlds, and the key pulsing in her palm. She remembered the lake, the woman, the words, do not fear, do not judge, choose. And Alice said, I choose her. Everything vanished. The street, the man, the girl, the night, even time dissolved. Alice stood in a white space, infinite, like the inside of thought. Before her, a door. On it, a message. You have crossed. Now create the path for others. Alice walked through the white space where there was no sky, no ground, no walls, only her footsteps. Fading behind her like they were never there, beside her walked the girl. Silent, calm. The girl said, You're creating. Each step is not a path, it's a choice. You're no longer a wanderer. You're a guide. Doors began to appear around her. They rose out of sound, of light, of scent. One door hummed softly. Another smelled like fresh bread from childhood. The third whispered in a voice that once said, "Am I supposed to go to them?" "No, you must open for them, within yourself." Alice closed her eyes, and she began to feel, not with her mind, but with her heart. A woman who stares at the ceiling every night thinking, "What if I'd been born someone else?" A boy who fears sleep, because in dreams he remembers who he used to be. She was meant to remember with them. Suddenly, the space ignited with light. He appeared, the masked man, but now the mask was gone. His face was like a mirror. It held everything: fear, hope, and light. "You've guided your first soul," he said. "You didn't fix her. You allowed her to be. That's greater than any miracle. But you have a compass now. And it's your heart." The girl stepped forward. "I'm not a girl anymore. I'm listening. Through me, you will hear the ones who cannot speak. You are not alone, Alice. We'll be with you. And everyone who remembers themselves will help others remember too." She handed Alice a scroll. It was blank, but the moment Alice touched it, words appeared. "The story is over, but the telling has just begun." Milky Way, the world returned to color. Alice opened her eyes. In the real world, she was sitting on a bench by the river. Water flowed nearby. On her lap was a book with blank pages. On the first page, written in golden ink, "Whisper of the Soul, Story 1. She smiled, because now she knew she would tell stories.